people. It's not necessarily the most qualified people who get jobs in sport. It's the ones who are the best at understanding who they are and what they've got to offer, and making a large amount of people know what they've got to offer and building trust with those people that land the dream jobs in sport. Hello and welcome to the SportsGrad Podcast, the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry, brought to you by Deakin University, home to the world's #1 sports science school. Now, my name is Reuben Williams. As always, I'm your host on this podcast. I'm also an ex-Cricket Australia employee who started SportsGrad to help others get their dream job in sport, and now it's become my own dream job. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, the purpose of it is to help you get a job in sport. So if that's you, subscribe to the show and I will be in your ears every single week with advice on how you can start living the dream in sport. Now, today I want to take you through one of the biggest mistakes that people make in their job hunting in the sports industry. And it's all about the sequence of the actions that they take, because everyone is doing it the exact wrong way around. And before I get into sharing that, I want to share you a quick story about someone in our program called Tom Blazek, and how he went from being invisible to the sports industry to being an authority, particularly within the athlete well-being space. So I'd known Tom for a little while, but at the start of the year, he was literally the very first person who applied for the SportsGrad Method Accelerator program. I've still got his application here on the 18th of December, 2024. And Tom joined the program and absolutely threw himself into everything that I suggested that he do. To go from literally invisible, he was a substitute teacher working in schools, but he wanted to work in the athlete wellbeing space. And so what we did is we helped him become an authority in that space. We helped him establish a strategy for his LinkedIn content, how he would formulate that, a posting schedule, and who he was trying to speak to and the value he was trying to provide. And so by helping him come up with a strategy, we're able to help him implement valuable content every single week. And so when you go through his content, he starts by introducing himself and why he wants to work in sport. And then, the first post, it really hits a nail on the head. It gets about 60 likes and maybe 4 reshares. And anything more than 1 reshare is great, because it means you are making other people look good. And at this point in time, he had 220 followers. And he wrote back to me after the first week and said, "Reuben, my entire goal for LinkedIn this year was to have one post that got 1,000 impressions. And the very first post got 5,000 impressions. So he's 5x'd his goal on the first hit just by having a strategy and having a system behind him to help him implement it." So Tom has gone ahead with this strategy for 10 weeks in a row. And, his posts are getting anywhere from 50, 60 likes up until 100 likes, anywhere from 2 to 5 to 10 reposts. And in that journey as well, he's having people like, Mark Worthington, who has come and chatted to our community before, who is the head of player development at the Geelong Football Club, liking and engaging this post. And that means, now Tom, who was previously invisible to someone like Mark, is now known to Mark. And so if Tom wants to apply for a job at the Geelong Cats, Mark now goes, "Oh, yeah, that's Tom, the LinkedIn guy." And so this is what Tom was able to do over the space of 10 weeks. He was able to go from invisible, i.e. being industry ready, to being an authority, i.e. being industry wanted. And so he did this for 10 weeks in a row, gathered close to 100,000 impressions, and then he did a final post where he summarized all of his previous 10 posts in the series into one post. It got 257 likes, 19 reshares, and when you go through the reshares, there's people like, the NBA mental health provider who are in there, or player development manager for the IMG Academy over in, Florida, or people working with, with the FA over at Wembley. You got people in this athlete wellbeing space right around the world liking and engaging with Tom's profile and his content, because he's just providing so much value there. And so what Tom has done is he's taken himself from being invisible to being an authority in literally 3 weeks. And he grew from 220 followers to 780 followers, which was an increase of 254%. And that is what can happen when you know how to do it correctly. And as a result of that, he's been able to open up opportunities for himself. So now he's become the athlete wellbeing manager at the Sherwood Magpies up in the Quaffle. And he's also in talks with a lot of people in that space about opportunities that he can do in the future, as well as one in particular over in Spain with a bloke at Villarreal in La Liga who is in talks with about starting a podcast together. So by following a method to making himself an authority and not be invisible to the industry anymore, he's been able to open up so many doors for himself. Now, I want to get into the mistake that people are making just a second, but that is how to do it properly. What Tom has done is absolutely the right way to go about it. Build an audience first, create an authority, become an authority, and opportunities flow from that.
Quick one. Have you got your eye on a future in sport? If you're ready to transform the industry, then perhaps get ready to study with Deakin and prepare yourself to redefine what it means to work in sport. That's what I did, at least. Deakin's School of Exercise and Nutrition Sciences is ranked #1 in the world. Pretty cool, hey? So if you want to turn your passion for sport into an impactful career, get ready to push the limits of exercise science, sport coaching, sport development, sport management, nutrition sciences, physical education, and more. You can do it all at Deakin. Apply now and study at Deakin University.
Now, I want to help you just take a step back a bit to understand what are we trying to achieve here. Because at the end of the day, when we're trying to land a job in sport, we are trying to sell ourselves and get someone to buy us. And so I want to share with you the house analogy for those who haven't heard it already. Because at the end of the day, you've got to sell your house. And the process to selling a house is very similar to selling yourself. So the house analogy is this. When you buy a block of land that you can build a house on and sell for more money in the future, you start by putting the foundations down, you put the walls down, put the roof on top, and now you've got a house sitting there in the street that you can sell. But even if you have built the nicest house in the best street in Melbourne, it still doesn't just sell itself. First, you have to go out and understand, like, what has this house got to offer? Who can buy it? And then make people aware of it, that it's for sale. And so you start by thinking, all right, how many bathrooms has a house got? How many bedrooms has a house got? Has it got a backyard? Has it got a second story? Has it got a pool? Then based on what the house has got to offer, then you can think about, all right, who is the ideal buyer for this house? Is it a young couple who can, flip it and renovate it? Is it a large family who can move straight into it and start living there? Then once you understand the ideal customer, then it's about getting as much awareness of it as possible and using the right selling points out there to generate awareness on paper, in person, and online. So you might put an ad in the newspaper, you might put an ad on a website, you might run some Instagram ads to that website, and you might run an open inspection as well. And effectively, through a combination of understanding what the house has got to offer, who is the ideal buyer, and then getting it out through those 3 channels in the most effective way using those selling points, that is how you get the best price for your house. Now, what this has got to do with your career in sport is the fact that the same fundamentals, principles apply. Because when you go to university, when you come out of school, that is you with your vacant block of land. When you go to university, you put the foundations down. When you pick up in internships, you put the walls down. When you pick up, more work experience, put the roof on top. And now you've got a house that you can sell. But that is where most people stop. They think, I've built a house now. Surely someone's just going to come along and buy it. It doesn't work that way. And a lot of people never fulfill their potential and never end up working in sport. And you have to go back and find some other job because they forget that they need to go out there and sell their house. And so it's the ones that take the time to understand what their house has got to offer. So what is their floor plan? And the ones who take the time to get their name out there on paper, in person, and online are the ones who land dream jobs in sport. Because as frustrating as it can be for people who go back to university and do a master's and do a PhD and keep building layers on their house, it's not necessarily the smartest people. It's not necessarily the most qualified people who get jobs in sport. It's the ones who are the best at understanding who they are and what they've got to offer and making a large amount of people know what they've got to offer and building trust with those people that land the dream jobs in sport. So at the end of the day, it's all about building trust. You don't need more experience, you need more trust. So you are a product and you need to think about yourself as a product that needs marketing. So then you think about, all right, what is the roadmap to marketing myself once I've built my house? Now, this is a mistake that most people make with job hunting. They take the typical path of having a resume to use. They then use it to apply for a job. Then they wait. then they think, okay, I need to polish my resume. That doesn't seem to work. And that's not really the real problem. The problem is that they haven't built up enough trust. So what they then go to next is trying to network with the people who they will be applying for jobs for. So let's say, for example, they've just spent, a first month just handing the resume out everywhere. Quick apply here, quick apply there, and nothing works. 30 applications, no interviews. So a month goes by. Then they're like, all right, I need a network. So they jump on LinkedIn, they send a few messages, or they find the email of someone, they send a few emails. And, maybe one person responds. They're busy. And it takes a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even a month to connect with busy people. And, on average, probably takes, literally 2 to 3 weeks to lead someone from cold outreach to getting face-to-face time with them in a coffee scenario. And so then that takes time. And so by the time you've built maybe you've had 3 coffees with people, it could be 2 to 3 months. So now you've been job hunting for 4 months whilst trying to build up trust with people still. And then once you get to that point, you realize this is a really slow process. It's hard to meet people, hard to build relationships quickly. Then people turn to LinkedIn and they come out with their first post ever or their first post in 6 months. And it says, hey, I'm #open to work. And you got the green circle of death around your face that just signals desperate. And so then that falls on deaf ears and it leads to nowhere because, again, you haven't built up any trust. It's just like you've just launched yourself into the world without anybody knowing who you are or what you could do. And so then, people get flattened by that and they think, oh, LinkedIn is useless. I'm not going to go back there and post again. And then they're still desperate, 2 or 3 months later, they come back again for their second post and it falls on flat ears again. And now you've been job hunting for about 6 or 7 months and nothing has changed because you haven't built up the trust. The SportsGrad method is to reverse that equation. The SportsGrad method is to build an audience first, grow a network second, and then applications last. And so what we do is we help you use LinkedIn as your trust building platform because this is what happens. When you go out there in the world like Tom has and you build an audience first, then people get to know who you are and they trust you. They can see the value you can add, and that opens doors to conversation. So Tom's been able to build his network off the back of that. And then once you network with those people, should they receive your resume, it becomes much easier to progress to an interview round. And that certainly was the case with me. I've mentioned before that during COVID, I doubled my salary by going about it this way. In the lead up to being made redundant, I posted on LinkedIn 10 times, built up an audience first. And then the last post was, hey, I've just lost my job. Who's got something going? Because I'd built up trust with my network, that meant that it opened the doors to a lot of conversations. And one of those conversations led to a job opportunity that took me from $60,000 a year at Cricket Australia to $120,000 a year with this new agency. I didn't go completely through with the job. I took the noble path of entrepreneurship because I was like, you know what, my heart isn't completely in this. I want to build SportsGrad. So there are a lot of times where I was like, that $120K salary would be really nice right now. But I turned it down to build SportsGrad. So no, you're welcome. And but at the end of the day, to get to that point where I was doubling my salary, it came from building trust and building an audience and building myself up as an authority in a space that led to more networking opportunities, that led to, more successful applications. And I think I interviewed for a couple of other roles at that time too. But, again, not many, I don't think I sent my resume out to many applications that didn't get to an interview because I'd done the work to build an audience, to build a network. And then, the application was so easy. So that is what you need to do. You need to start reversing the equation because that is when things start to come to life. So when you think about this, then job hunting becomes a very clear system that you can follow. And I'm going to break it down even further for you. So you've got clear KPIs you can start to hit to start to get to that endpoint where, people are looking at you and you've got more credibility. You can negotiate better when the salary talks are up in the air as well. So the first career KPI you want to be hitting is posting on LinkedIn 3 to 4 times per month. That allows you to get your name out there. And what that also does is it means that you stay top of mind with anyone who you've met before. And so what you want to do from there is then think about, all right, well, how can I take, I don't just want to post for the sake of posting. It's got to be valuable stuff. So you want to aim for posts that get, on average, 1,000 impressions per time. Because when you're doing that, you're reaching a large amount of people. Like, imagine trying to throw your resume around to 1,000 people at once. Like, there's not enough time in the year to do that. So one LinkedIn post can get your name out there to 1,000 people. So first, aim for 3 to 4 LinkedIn posts per month. Then think about how can you build the quality of those posts up to reaching 1,000 people per time. Then what you want to do is use the audience that you grow from that to start to build a list of decision makers. And you should have a target, like literally set a goal for the number of decision makers that you want to meet, because ultimately these are going to be the people who refer you. So the goal I recommend is building a list of decision makers that equals 50% of the market that you are applying for jobs in. So take Melbourne, for example. It's got roughly 50 to 60 employers across national bodies, state bodies, teams, leagues, agencies, facilities, you name it. And so if you aim for 50% of that, say 25 to 30, then it means more often than not, you will have someone on the inside who can vouch for you. And I can guarantee you every single job in sport has got someone who's being vouched for. So it might as well be you. You need to have that competitive advantage. And I had that competitive advantage when I was at Cricket Australia, or when I got into Cricket Australia, because, my mate Joel Morrison, or he became my mate, I spent 12 months building up a relationship with Joel Morrison. And when I needed him, I called him up and said, hey, what do you know about this job in the commercial team? What do you know about the interview process? What do you know about the manager? He spoke to me for 45 minutes, told me everything I needed to know to be successful. He then goes, taps the manager on the shoulder and says, hey, there's this guy called Reuben coming. I know him. I trust him. I think you should seriously consider him. And as a result, I was walking into that interview room from a position of strength rather than scrapping it out on the ground level with everybody else, because I had that competitive advantage. So what you want to do is not just build that up in one organization, but across 20, because it means more often than not, where your resume lands, you should have a Joel who can help you out. So your next KPI is, say, roughly 20 to 30 decision makers on your contact list. So that doesn't mean you just connect with them on LinkedIn. It means you physically have their phone number in your phone saved, ready so you can call. That is the test of the strength of a relationship, okay? So make sure you get to that point. If you're cheating yourself, you are just cheating yourself. So that is your next KPI. Start with 3 to 4 LinkedIn posts per month, get to 1,000 impressions per post, use that to build a decision-making list of 20 people. And then the last test is you want to maintain an application to interview conversion rate of 25%, which means 1 in 4 applications are leading you to the interview room and allowing you to get a shot on goal. And so, this becomes very hard if no one knows who you are and you're just chucking your resume in a pile. But this becomes very easy if you've got 20 people who know who you are. You've got an entire internet of followers who know who you are. And so now the conversation has changed when people pick up your resume. They don't go, oh, who's Tom? They go, oh, it's Tom, the LinkedIn guy who's been posting, this series about insights on athlete wellbeing. Let's get him in here. So that is how you get your application interview conversion rate up. You get into more interview rooms, eventually going to get a job. And that is how job hunting in sport becomes a system. So if you are interested in that, the SportsGrad method cohort 2 just kind of kicked off today. We help people fast track all of that, because learning how to do every step effectively can be pretty difficult. But we're going to be working with a cohort of people over the next 12 weeks to help them do that, which is super, super exciting. We're going to open up a wait list for people who want to join that as well. So head to the website. You'll be able to find where you can put your name down to join the next one. But again, if you are struggling to think about how we're going to break into sport, don't worry so much about how you're going to get there just yet. Just believe that it is a system and it is a process. And at the end of the day, it comes down to just marketing yourself. And good marketers will know that, it's just maths. When you know how to work the numbers, then you can eventually get to someone buying you as a product. So go out there, build trust, grow your visibility, track your KPIs, and audit where you're at today. And if you need a hand, you know where to find us. See you later.
Hey, last thing before you go. Everyone knows the sports industry is super competitive, so you might want to keep this to yourself. But every Monday, I send out an email called Shortcuts by SportsGrad. It takes 5 minutes to read, and it gives you everything you need to get an edge over other job hunters on a silver platter. Here you'll find exclusive job opportunities, networking events, and premium resources to get ahead. Again, it takes less than 5 minutes to read, and it's designed to help you get ahead and stay ahead. So if you want to receive the next one in your inbox, head to sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter. But as I mentioned, competition for jobs in sport is red hot, so perhaps keep this to yourself.